Details on the story, and I'm joined via Skype by the Transport Minister's spokesperson, Ayanda, Alli, Paine. A very good morning to you. And I'm just wondering, this decision to extend the hours, if you realize what sort of hell this has unleashed. I mean, you are seeing minibuses packed to the rafters there, full of people, millions in close contact with each other now.
Jane, a very good morning to you. Good morning to you, Tony, and to your viewers. Thank you very much once again for having us. I think it's very important that we go back to the reasons why it is that the lockdown is in effect and what we're hoping to achieve. And you're quite right. If we look at that objective, it may look at face value like we quite have lost the grasp of what's happening. But it's very important that we continue to enforce the law. This is not an issue that is peculiar to South Africa. It is not something that is isolated to this country. We're seeing the world over a need to reinforce the law as it pertains to the regulations. But secondly, it's equally important that we understand that while we look at the global benchmarks and international standards, we are not oblivious to the fact that there are nuances in South Africa that we simply cannot ignore. And one of those is the socioeconomic condition that many of our people are living under. We cannot turn a blind eye to the fact that a lot of people rely on the social grant that a grandma or a grandpa brings into the home, or the young children receive from government. And so we need to put plans in place for them to access those grants and to be able to purchase the necessary essential food items that they will then need for the lockdown. So this is a necessary evil, as it were.
Okay, I understand that they need to get this. Obviously, we don't want them deprived of this. But you know that it's not going to work in a country like this, where rules are not adhered to. I mean, we've just been listening to taxi drivers saying that they know that there should only be 8, but today and tomorrow they're allowed to have 15 people in there. There seems to be a lot of confusion about how many people can be in the bus. We saw queues of people standing right next to each other. There is no social distancing. So while it is an essential service, surely it needs to be conducted in another manner.
I think with all due respect, Jane, that's a rather sweeping statement. One can't say that there's no compliance all over the country, because that would be misleading and factually incorrect. We are of the view that while there are areas that still need careful consideration with regards to how we implement the law and how we monitor that implementation, there are other pockets of excellence where we are seeing social distancing. We're seeing the public sector and the private sector doing their bit. I mean, in the private sector, we saw shopping complexes putting chairs outside so that they can monitor the number of people coming inside. I've had calls from all manner of people, taxi drivers, private vehicle owners, companies, all seeking ways that they can comply. That tells me that South Africans are law-abiding, and they really do want to implement the regulations of government. Some of them don't know how, but it's not for a lack of trying. So I think, yes, you're quite right. If we look for all the transgressors, we will find them. But likewise, if we look for all of those who are abiding by the law, we will find those too.
Sure, not taking away from those who abide by the law. Some of the taxi drivers that we were hearing from this morning, they were saying that they can't survive on the few people that they are transporting now, and they're looking for some sort of compensation. Can that be made available to them?
While we have seen the support of Santaco at the moment welcoming these extended hours, of course, this lifeline for social grant recipients has worked in their favor. But there are likely a number of other entities or organizations in the taxi industry. They are calling for some reforms, as it were. And in fact, Minister Mbalula had planned that in July this year, a national taxi indaba would take place where all these issues would be thrashed out. Number one, how to regulate, I should say, the taxi industry. And number two, how to make sure that it is professionalized. And then thirdly, how is it subsidized, like the buses, like the trains, like aviation, maritime, you name it. So those are important conversations that have taken place, continue to take place, and indeed will find expression towards the end of this year. But I think when it comes to the situation at the moment, some of the interventions that the minister has made is to speak to the financial services providers and said, please, will you relax your requirements in terms of your loan agreement for the taxi industry, at least for the next 3 months, allow them to recover financially from this ordeal. When it comes to a subsidy from the state at the moment, there is no avenue for the Department of Transport to fund directly the taxi industry for the losses, and there will be many losses that would be incurred during this time. But the conversations are open. I'm glad to say Minister Mbalula has got a healthy working relationship with the NTAs of this world, Santacos, and many other taxi formations.
Ayanda, Alli, Paine, very good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.